What a massive win for Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. Happy Saturday to you all, because Kansas State has defeated UCF 34-20, moving to 1-1 in Big 12 play. This is a massive win for the program. What a huge crowd they had at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Overall, just a really good game for Kansas State. There were some blunders. There was some things that you can really nitpick in this one. I don't know how far we'll go on the reaction show with that, because there is a lot of good to talk about. We're going to break down this game in whole throughout the week, but especially today on this instant reaction show. Drop your comments, your questions in the chat, because I'm going to get to them. We're going to answer all your questions and thoughts on this show, so be sure to do that. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, share it with a friend. We're talking Kansas State football right here and how good it feels to be 1-1 in the Big 12. I'm not looking at that 2-3. That's great. That's fine. You know what? But 1-1 is huge. When you look at how the rest of the standings are sitting out, that's exactly where you need to be. And UCF handing them their first loss of the season is nothing to just bat an eye about. UCF came in as a decent looking team and getting a win by 2 scores, which I think could have been a lot more, especially what happened at the beginning of this football game, just shows that the energy and hopefully the bye week is a huge win for Chris Klieman and his coaching staff. You know, Chris Klieman has a terrible record coming into bye weeks. So that was something that we didn't really discuss this past week heading into it, almost like an afterthought, because there were just so many other narratives. But I remembered that heading into this football game, and it didn't make it an issue. They hit that reset button I talked about. It wasn't lip service. These veterans on this team, the rest of the team stepped up, and it really showed in this football game. Kansas State was absolutely amazing right from the jump. And you had a great run by Avery Johnson in the first drive of the game. He ran with his legs. It was absolutely incredible. Then you had a good run by Dylan Edwards. And then you kind of had a taste of a blunder when it came to the play calling. And before Lincoln Cure had his first reception, and he did get that today, congrats. But before he had that, he had his first interception. Before a reception, Lincoln Cure, our star tight end, had an interception. An interesting play call on that one. That's probably the only really blunder I'm going to get into on this one, because it was just a weird way to start the football game after the momentum you had. I think Matt Wells redeemed himself quite well for the majority of this game, but that was just a weird one. At the beginning of this Kansas State football game, you had 3 drives that went into the opponent's territory. You had 21 plays to their 0 in the first half in opponent's territory. And in those first 3 drives, you only came up with 13 points. This game was 34-20 final. But I mean, Kansas State could have put 50 points on them if they would have started off strong in those first couple of drives. I put a tweet out on Locked On K-State when Luis Rodriguez, shout out to Luis Rodriguez, man, I never feel any worry when he's kicking for our team this year. When it went to 3-0, I said I couldn't help but feel like this game should be 21-0. And that wasn't the case, obviously, but thank God that Kansas State found a way to stick in this one and keep moving forward. I'm going to give you my game balls later on. I have 3 for each side, offense and defense. We're going to discuss that and just so much more. How about the Barnett package on offense? We get a little bit of Avery Johnson running his legs, and then we get quarterback 2. Is he the quarterback 2 now? Do we finally have our answer of the backup quarterback? I certainly hope so, because he looked like somebody who's going to be an absolute nightmare for Big 12 foes in the future of this program. Loved what that package was. I love that you could utilize his legs and Avery, a second weapon in the backfield, really a third weapon if you add Dylan Edwards to the mix. Really enjoyed what I saw from Barnett in this one. It was so good what this offense showed. I really enjoy it. And of course, we haven't even brought up the main attraction. Dylan Edwards being back is such a huge energy lift for this team. A huge energy lift. And I was curious. It's like, are they playing this good because Dylan Edwards is back? Is this what we were missing this entire 4 games beforehand? just not having Dylan Edwards, and that was certainly a blunder and is certainly an issue on this team? Or was it because they knew that they must win this game? Like desperation mode. If they lose this football game, then this season goes down the drain fast. We start talking about people's jobs. We start talking about people leaving in the portal. This win saves the program and saves this season. So what was it? Was it a little bit of both? Or was it more on one side? I'm leaning towards right now the energy of Dylan Edwards. It just felt different. And I mentioned that during the Arizona game, just the 4 carries they had, you could start to see the train kind of moving and leaving the station for this Kansas State offense when Dylan Edwards was on the field. Not only those 4 carries in Arizona, he had an 11-yard gain, but there was some glimpses of hope, right? Well, he showed definitely glimpses of hope, and he had 20 carries for 166 yards, kind of a Rate Bowl feeling game, that Rutgers bowl game feeling from Dylan Edwards in this one, including a 75-yard rushing touchdown for the star, the running back that we've all hoped that he could be, Dylan Edwards, and proving that he is the dude in the rushing game. Having him and Avery Johnson both get a total of 32 carries is great things to happen. We got 12 carries from Avery Johnson for 75 yards. He had 8 carries in the first half. That is what Matt Wells needs to do moving forward. The recipe is right there. He just proved that the recipe is right there. It's absolutely insane that it took this long to do so. But now that Dylan Edwards is back, now that he's healthy, and you have Avery Johnson, who has shown that he's not afraid to run with his legs anymore. He proved it today against UCF. This is a different feeling of this ball team again. Are you getting that off-season vibes again? We haven't even talked about defense. We're going to really dive into them, but I'm starting to get this off-season vibe feel again. If you can just ignore some of these games in the past, because with the exception of the Iowa State game, those other games don't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is 1-1 in the Big 12. And 1-1's not a bad spot to be in heading into October. It really isn't when you look at this dog-eat-dog Big 12 world that we're in. Anything can happen in this conference. We saw Arizona State, a team that was predicted last year, to win the whole thing. That Arizona game that happened a week and a half ago doesn't matter. It was a non-conference game. That game doesn't matter. Army doesn't matter. North Dakota doesn't matter. The Iowa State game and the one today against UCF is the only ones that matter moving forward, and the rest of the games on the schedule. There is still a chance to get to Arlington. And I said if they lost this football game, I'd never bring it up again. But guess what? They won 34-20, and I think they could have easily put 50 points up on this board. 266 yards rushing. This is a team that was in the 100s. I think it was 108 on the season when it came to total rushing yards per game entering this one, with only, I had it written down, I don't know where it is at the moment, but they had 266 yards rushing. They doubled what they normally get in a football game and then some. Absolutely incredible about this running game. The offensive line stepped up. We saw some movement and changes with some of these players. Some younger guys came in, and it was the answer. So that's a twofold bonus. You have younger guys stepping up, meaning that you have longevity at the offensive line position, and you have success. Huge win for Kansas State on the offensive line this season. We did get an injury, though, that happened really early in the game, almost to the point where we didn't even know he played. Jace Brown, big play Jace. We did get a 75-yard touchdown this game, like Jace had in Arizona, but unfortunately it was just from Dylan Edwards. Jace Brown only played 1 snap, according to reports, and he came out limping and hobbling. There was a couple people on social media that were speculating turf toe. We'll hear more from, I'm sure, Chris Kleiman in the presser, what he says about Jace Brown. We'll, of course, have you covered here on Locked On Kansas State when we react to Chris Kleiman and the rest of the players' reaction on the pressers on the next episode. I hope it's not serious, whatever it is from Jace Brown. If it is turf toe, I hope it's a very low grade, and maybe he is ready to go for the game against Baylor next Saturday in Waco, because they'll definitely need him in Waco for that game for sure. Lots of really good stuff for this offense. Lots of good stuff. Jaron Tibbs, 8 receptions for 72 yards, really proving that can be a receiver to step up when it's needed. When Jared Bradley went down, he stepped up. When Jace Brown eventually went down, he stepped up again. And what he does in the run game, becoming one of the best blocking wide receivers I've seen in quite some time for Kansas State. What an addition coming over from a team like Purdue, where you wouldn't expect him to be an amazing guy because Purdue was such a terrible team last year in college football. He comes over to this program and really shows up. So love what I'm seeing from Tibbs. And then we finally get some tight end touchdowns in the red zone. And not just one, we get two. We get back to that good old-fashioned Kansas State offense that we had last year, leading the country in red zone touchdowns for tight ends with 13. We get two of them today. Really awesome stuff from Kansas State. You know, I got to tip my hat for the most part. I'd say 85, 90% of the plays for Matt Wells, I think he did a good job. Now, there were still some blunders. That interception from Lincoln Cure when you were driving, the momentum was weird. It was almost like you were allergic to momentum early in this football game, and it was very concerning. But I think he rebounded great. I think he really focused and sat on the RPO, which when Dylan Edwards is in that game, an RPO between him and Avery Johnson is a very dangerous thing. And they proved that in this one against UCF. There was also a couple times that I noticed with a couple third down and longs, going back to that whole kind of question mark on the play calls. They had Joe Jackson in at running back for two of the third down longs instead of Dylan Edwards, and they went to Joe each time. And Joe Jackson got a touchdown. I'm glad that he had a good game, but both those third down plays, Joe Jackson was short. You have to think that maybe having more of an explosive guy like Dylan Edwards, if he's put in that situation, you might not have to worry about converting those third downs like you didn't do in those. So that was a questionable play call decision for me. But overall, I mean, dare I say, is this the best Matt Wells play calling of the season? I think that's a fair thing to say. It's not perfect by any means, but when you look at the other four games that have happened so far this season, and it's not like it's a huge competition, but I think it's probably his best play calling so far this year. Let me know what you think about Matt Wells' play calling. It was a little conservative towards the end of the game, and that was kind of weird, trying to play it super safe to make sure you got this win. Again, the desperation mode definitely came into play and effect on that one, in my opinion. But overall, let me know what you think about Matt Wells' play calling, because that is still going to be a narrative and a question that we talk about all season long until it proves itself from multiple games in a row. All right, let's get to a break. Then we're going to talk defense, and then we're going to get to your questions, and I'm going to hand out some game balls. We'll do it right here on Locked On Kansas State. I'm so excited. I'm saying words twice. That's how excited I am. Well, today's episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by DoorDash. It is the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I went in the future on this one during the week and said Dylan Edwards was the guy. I was completely right. Dylan Edwards stepped up for this team in a big way. He delivered on that huge 75-yard rush, expanding and getting past the tackles, past the line of scrimmage, not letting UCF control the edge. So many good things that Dylan Edwards did in this football game, and you have to love what he did. No hesitation, no delay. He just came through. And if you've been watching week after week, Kansas State needed this. And this performance wasn't a fluke, though. If you look back to him in the Rape Bowl game, just an absolute masterclass by Dylan Edwards. And just like Dylan Edwards delivered for Kansas State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Kansas State coming in with a huge victory to move to 1-1 on the season in the Big 12. 34-20 against an unbeaten, now beaten, UCF Knights team. Taven Jackson gets injured in this one. He winds up coming back in the football game, but Cody Stufflebean had a huge game. And now that I think of it, I didn't even put him down in my game ball. I might have to have 4. The defensive unit was insane for Kansas State in this one. Cody Stufflebean had so many good hits in this one. He is the reason that Taven Jackson went out in this one. It was a clean hit, though. No dirty hit whatsoever. But he had so much pressure. He was playing aggressive. And it's crazy to look back at the beginning of the season. If you remember, ESPN College Game Day played a game and asked what name doesn't exist, and the analyst pointed at Cody Stufflebean. He's not a name that people know about unless you're a Kansas State fan, an everydayer. And he really needs to start – people need to start remembering his name, because what he does is some incredible stuff, and he's such a good leader on this team. I was very impressed with the secondary in this game. Zayshawn Rich really stepped up. Shows you the reason why he played every step against Arizona on last game. And then in this one, I'm sure when we see the PFF scores, I don't know if he left the game either, but he played excellent coverage. He had some great pressures as well. Multiple big plays on third down. Really enjoyed what I saw from the defense on this. Now, there are some big plays that they did let up, and that is going to be a concern. That is something that if this was a closer game, then this is a problem because there were multiple explosive plays that were let up by Kansas State. And that is something that needs to be fixed. But there were so many other positives you need to take from this. Like, for example, they got off the field. Now, sometimes they got off the field because they let up those big plays, like an 82-yard touchdown pass when Wesley Fair dived at a bad angle. He was the last line of defense. Shouldn't have made that dive. Should have played a little more conservative. But they found a way to get off the field in general. And that was huge. When you go back to that Army game, you go back to that game against Iowa State, these defenses were gassed. Never had that feeling in this one whatsoever. You just got to find a way to stop those explosive plays. Hopefully it's not a speed issue, because that is something that popped up to me as a concern, a possible speed issue for Kansas State's defense, because there are going to be more explosive players inside the Big 12 other than UCF. And the defense needs to step up if they want to find themselves to move to 2-1, 3-1, and moving forward in Big 12 standings. Either way, really enjoyed what I saw from this defensive squad. Really liked what I saw there. Austin Romaine, I think he proved it. You know, I kind of called him out this week. The entire defense as a whole, I said, you need to prove that this defense belongs in the category as one of the best Big 12 defenses in America. And I think they did that today. If you take out some of those big plays, in the first half, minus that 82-yard touchdown, they had 49 yards of total offense in that first half alone. Not a single play in Kansas State territory, because that touchdown pass was like 82 yards. That's huge. They started the game off with 3 punts in a row and then an interception. And then Taven Jackson went down with an injury. It was a really, really good job by this Kansas State defense. Gunnar Maldonado with an interception. Amazing. Awesome to see him step up as we're starting to see him get more snaps and really get involved after dealing with some injuries over the offseason. Awesome to see him. He almost had 2. He was very close to getting his second interception on the day. And then Quay Moss, the interception at the end of the game to seal the deal. I mean, if that's not on SportsCenter top 10, I don't know what could be. That was impressive what Quay Moss did. He took it out of the wide receiver's hands, took the interception, and then got his feet in bounds before going out of bounds to get the possession and to get the ball back for Kansas State for the final time. Love what I'm seeing from this defense. This is the energy that you needed. This is the energy that Kansas State needed. And it's unfortunate that it didn't happen at the beginning of September when you were playing these other teams that you should have been winning by these scores or better. But it's a perfect moment nonetheless, because you're starting Big 12 play all over again. And this is the time to get hot. The other games don't matter anymore because you're not in that large bid. The only games that matter are the ones ahead of you. And you have a lot more chances, 7 more chances to stick around and find yourself potentially in Arlington. It feels different, doesn't it? It feels absolutely different. And I absolutely love what I've seen so far from this Kansas State team. Special teams was great. Saw some good stuff from special teams. Punt game has been fantastic so far. I mentioned Luis Rodriguez already. How great is it to know that you have a kicker on this squad that steps up and does amazing things for this team? I mean, I don't feel any anxiety whatsoever when I see him going out for a kick that's less than 50 yards. I don't. I'm like, yeah, he's going to take care of this. It's going to be an easy day. Simon McClanahan has drastically improved as a punter at Kansas State. He had a 65-yard punt in the second quarter, according to Kansas State Stats and Info. It's the longest by a K-State punter since Jack Blummer in 2023. 69-yard punt he had. It's just awesome feeling knowing that your special teams wasn't an issue in this football game, something that has happened multiple times, not just this season, but last season as well. So a lot of good stuff from both sides here and special teams. I really enjoy it. Let me know who your players of the games are. Who would you hand your game ball to? Drop in the comments. Give me one on offense, one on defense, because that's what I'm getting to next. We're going to talk a little bit of looking ahead to Baylor, and then I'm going to answer your questions right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State, this reaction show of us taking down the UCF Knights, is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs with caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love the most about 5-Hour Energy is how portable they are. You know, big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it most. I would go with the grape flavor. That's the one that I've always gone to. But with 17 different flavors, I might need to check out something different. So enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to get your caffeine flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get your favorites you love, like grape, or be bold and try something new in store or online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Such a good feeling to have Kansas State win this football game to move to 1-1 on the season in Big 12 play. Locked On Kansas State here. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Smash that like. Share it to a friend. If you're listening in audio form, I thank you so much. We are going to have a reaction show that comes out tomorrow on Sunday, talking about the press game, the post-game presser. We're going to make sure we do that. I don't like waiting. I like getting right to this punch and give you my instant reaction as soon as the game is over. I love hitting live here. So we'll have a second episode for you, and we'll put that out on Sunday so you can have something to listen to before you check out NFL games. There should be some fun NFL slate as well. I got to give out some game balls here, then I'll get to your comments because there is some good ones in here, and I really appreciate everybody chiming in. I'm going to go 3 on the offensive side because I think there was a lot, and I think you could hand out a lot of game balls. That's a really good feeling for this Kansas State team. I think it's safe to say that Dylan Edwards deserves a game ball. What he did for this offense, the energy that he brought, was absolutely incredible. Avery Johnson, I think, deserves one as well because he used his legs. He stepped up. He proved that that narrative still exists, that he can be a dark horse candidate like for the Heisman Trophy. I'm not saying he's in the Heisman Trophy race because the season has already been a wash for him at the beginning, but he can prove that he can be that type of caliber player. I think he did that today. And then you could give it to Tibbs. I think Tibbs is a good one as well, but I'm going to go with Devin Vass here for my 3rd game ball on the offensive line. He was a huge asset for that block on Dylan Edwards' touchdown run. The plays that I saw him on there, when I saw him on the field, I was immediately looked over at him. Like he was always doing something impressive. I can't wait to see his PFF scores. I think he's going to have one of the highest PFF scores, especially in the run blocking game for the offensive line. And we'll definitely talk about that on this week. But I think Devin Vass, the sophomore offensive lineman, deserves a game ball in this one. I think he truly stepped up, and they talked about they wanted to get him snaps, and there's a reason why, because I think he is one of the offensive linemen of the future. On the defensive side, Zayshawn Rich, I think, has been so impressive to me. He is starting to grow on me so much. He had this coming out game in the Rape Bowl game against Rutgers. Last week, he played all 83 snaps. I don't know if he left the field in this one either, but he had so many amazing plays. He had a pass rush on 3rd down that slowed down, that forced them to punt. And then when they were driving in the red zone after one of their explosive plays, he had another stop on one-on-one coverage that forced them to kick a field goal and kept it a 2-possession game. Zayshawn Rich, I think, was easily the best player on the defense in my mind in this football game. And I want to see if he played every snap again. If so, how incredible would it be? It's such a good feeling to know that I have multiple defensive players on here that are in the secondary I'm handing game balls to, because we've had this question mark all season long. Who's going to step up for guys like Jacob Parrish and Marcus Siegel? So many players left this offseason, and there were so many shoes to fill. I think we are finally starting to get those answers. And what a perfect time to get those answers when you're getting back into Big 12 play. Gunnar Maldonado getting that interception, game ball, absolutely should have had 2. He was very close to getting his 2nd interception. VJ Payne also almost had an interception as well. There was a lot of potential turnovers in this football game. And then Quay Moss. I mean, because the SC top 10 kind of play, if he's not on SC top 10, everybody on social media yell at ESPN or SportsCenter, tag them, and make sure that they see it. Go to the highlight, find it, tag them on it if you're on social media, because that needs to be on SportsCenter top 10. Those are my 6 game balls. I think they all are deserving. I think there's more that definitely deserve it. I see Danny Boy popping in here and said Dylan, Avery, and Tibbs for game balls, pass rush. Okay, I like that as a whole pass rush. Quay Moss and Luis Rodriguez. I love all of those. See, I think you could do that as well. And Luis Rodriguez, again, I don't feel any anxiety about him kicking at all less than 50 yards. It makes you really wonder. Maybe they just didn't know what they had yet going into week 0 in Dublin, but they would have gave him a chance even if that weather, that game was different. That's the farthest I'll go for what ifs, but crazy feelings to have. All right, let's get into some of your comments here. Thank you so much for chiming in. If you haven't already, keep chiming in. We'll get to them. Jake Stewart pops in and says, what a win. Not a huge fan of the uber conservative play calling at the end, but I'll take it. I'm with you, Jake. I completely agree. I overall want to give props to Matt Wells on this one because I think this is his best play calling of the season. And I think credit needs to be where credit's due. When you look at what has happened so far this year, where we are immediately getting pissed at the fact that Matt Wells is just not living up to the hype. He is not utilizing Avery Johnson properly. Maybe the fact that Dylan Edwards is back, and I know this is a weird cop-out, but the fact that Dylan Edwards is back and Avery Johnson is finally starting to play, maybe the fact they put Barnett in a package that woke up Avery as well, saying, look, if you're not going to run it, we have somebody else that's going to. Maybe there's a mix of all of it. Matt Wells, I think, did a good job on 85% of the play calling. The conservative part was something that made me a little worried too, though, because there was a feeling at the end of this game, like, man, if you keep doing this, UCF's going to get right back in this. Defense was letting up some explosive plays. They were playing well for the most part. I mean, but those explosive plays they were struggling with. So I'm with you. I think you had to play a little bit more aggressive. Thankfully, you come out with the win, the 2-score win. They were playing a little in the desperation mode to make sure they solidified that win in this one. RU Yeti says, nice to have Edwards back. Man, how good does it feel? How good does it feel to have Dylan Edwards back? You know, I don't know if we would be any bigger than 1-3 or now 2-3 on the season, 1-3 without Dylan Edwards. I don't know if that record changes at all. You have to think that it's a different game against Army. You got to think that it's probably a different game against Arizona. Maybe the Iowa State game stays the same. I highly doubt it. But the energy that he brought today makes you wonder that this season could be completely different if he didn't take that punt return. I'm expecting Dylan Edwards to not take a single special team snap the rest of the season. I kind of hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't. Interesting stuff. I love this. How does it feel being able to do a post game with a positive result? I feel like a giant wave of relief. Yes, it is so much better to get on this camera and talk to all you folks after a win. A loss, I hate it because I absorb it. I'm one of those people that absorb the feelings and the emotions. When you lose a game, it's there. I'm feeling it for the rest of the day. Now, my day is going to be much better when I sit and watch some of these great college games that are going to be on the rest of the day. I mean, there's some really good ones on the slate. I'm glad we played early in this one. I don't know how you guys feel about playing early. I'm glad we played early today because there are so many good football games on the rest of the night. Now I can kick back, crack myself a frosty beverage, relax with my wife and little one, and have a good time and feel good about it. So I absolutely love getting these positive results. Hopefully we have more in the future as well. You know, we were better than before, but the second half had some left to be desired by both the offense and defense. I'm guessing that you're talking about the explosive plays on defense because I agree with you. You know, and you can say maybe the conservative plays that Jake was talking about as well. They definitely went into that second half, especially the fourth quarter. You could tell that they were playing very safe. You know, and I don't want to say play to win, but of course they're playing to win. But I hope you get what I'm saying. I definitely feel like they were super conservative. I think Jake hit it right on the head. And the defensive explosive plays, if Joe Klanderman does not talk about that in the press conference, then we have issues. I'm sure that Chris Kleiman needs to talk about that as well, being a defensive-minded guy for sure. Danny Boy pops in and says, it's safe to say Devin Vass has earned his keep on the offensive line. Not pleased with big plays, UCF offense, and the insufficient offense in the first quarter. Overall, the Cats played so much better. Nail on the head, Danny Boy. I completely agree with you. I didn't even see this comment before I handed my game ball to Devin Vass, but I'm glad that you and some others are feeling the exact same way. You know, it's really easy to overlook these offensive linemen, especially when you have dual threat guys like Avery Johnson, explosive players like Dylan Edwards and all that stuff. Lincoln Cure getting his first career reception. You getting your other tight ends involved. Garrett Oakley making hurdles to get to hopefully to the end zone. There's a lot of things that you can look over on these offensive linemen. So I'm glad that other people are seeing it too. Devin Vass, I think, definitely deserves himself more snaps on the offensive line. I think you deserve a start. I think you absolutely deserve a start. Him, Gus Hawkins, John Pastore have been some of the greatest offensive linemen on this roster so far this season, and they're all the young guys. Pastore's a little bit on the veteran side, but still on the younger side. Makes you wonder what will happen when a guy like George Fitzpatrick comes back with years of eligibility left on his docket as well. Love the energy of all players. That is what we're missing. And then someone popped up, KU loses. I'm guessing that means Kansas lost. That game looked like a track meet when I was looking at the highlights to it. I didn't have any other game on except Kansas State. I have 4 other screens to my left right here, 4 other computer screens, and I didn't put on any single one. I was glued to the Kansas State game other than checking the box scores on some of the other Big 12s. I'll have to look back to the highlights, but if KU lost, that's a crazy feeling. But that means, hey, look, they got a loss in the Big 12 standings as well. One loss in the Big 12 standings doesn't mean much right now, does it? A lot of good feelings to have for Kansas State. I hope Jace's injury is not too serious. We need him. Yeah, I want to see what Chris Kleiman says about this Jace Brown injury. If it's turf toe, I hope it's a low-graded turf toe because there's some turf toe can be bad. I mean, if you're looking at Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals, he has turf toe. He had to get surgery, and he's going to be out for months. If this turf toe is to a point to where you can't function, it could be season ending. I'm not saying that's the case by any means, but turf toe sounds like not a crazy injury, but it is. It's a very painful injury. The way that you have to always use your toe to jump off and move your feet and run, it is way more of a serious injury if it is turf toe than what it sounds like. When I was younger, every time I would hear turf toe or like playing Madden or college football on the video games and got that, I always thought like it was like stubbing your toe or something like that. Was like my first initial reaction when I was younger. And the older I got and learned about what turf toe is, I always thought to myself, what a stupid name. Like you got to call something that way more serious. That is a name you need to call more serious because people aren't taking that seriously at all. And then one more from Danny Boy here. Anytime we rush for 100+ yards, offensive line deserves credit where credit's due. Completely agree with you. I agree. So next up on the docket is Baylor in Waco. It's going to be a tough game. Whether you think Baylor is as good as they were supposed to be or not, Kansas State's in that same boat. This was a game where I marked and circled as could be the game of the year for the Big 12. I don't know if that's the same feeling now that I have for this game. I mean, neither does the national media. This is an early game on ESPN Plus on Saturday, but it could be still a great game for you to gain momentum and move forward for the season because then you got Texas Tech and TCU and Utah. You got and Kansas, of course, in Lawrence. A lot of other games on the docket. This Baylor game is a perfect opportunity to get right, stay right, stop those explosive plays. Sawyer Robinson throws the football around the yard. He's not afraid to do that. I think he's had multiple games already this season of 400+ passing yards. Guys like Zayshawn Rich, Quay Moss, Gunnar Maldonado, those guys that we gave game balls to today, absolutely have to step up like they did in this one against UCF. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Kansas State. Again, we're going to come back here with tomorrow's episode reacting to the presser. We're going to talk about our thoughts on what we heard from Chris Kleiman and some of the other players that chimed in. We'll be here on Saturday. I'll drop it bright and early in the morning so you can listen to it or watch it before NFL football. I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Kick back and enjoy college football. Try not to do any chores, okay? I see it's beautiful in Manhattan, but try not to do any chores. Enjoy this one, all right? Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you back here next time, right here on Locked On Kansas State.